Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This video is presented by Team Wisdomio. If you're new to the channel, I welcome you here. This channel is all about the education of basic medical sciences and health stuff. We upload a video every Saturday, so make sure you subscribe and press the bell icon so you get the notification as soon as a new video is uploaded. In this video, I will walk you through the feedback systems that control homeostasis in body. The contents of this video include the control of homeostasis, feedback systems, types of feedback system, negative as well as positive feedback system with their examples, some complex types of control, and lastly, the gain of a control system. So, let's get started. Now, first of all, what controls homeostasis? We know that homeostasis is the body's property to keep its internal environment in a balanced state. For a detailed introduction of homeostasis, you can check out the video that pops up on the top right of the screen. Body has the nervous and the endocrine systems that basically regulate all body activities and control homeostasis by employing certain feedback mechanisms. If any disruption occurs in the working of these feedback systems, it can lead to fatal consequences. A feedback system can be defined as a sequence of events with each event stimulating the next and so on, finally producing an end product or a response which can be re-evaluated and changed if it does not meet the optimal requirements of body. The end product can either stimulate or inhibit the activity of a feedback system. So, a feedback system is a never-ending cycle of events that is functioning continuously in the body. Feedback systems have the same components as in homeostasis. A receptor that perceives stimulus, control center that evaluates the information and generates output commands, and effector that produces responses. Depending upon their stimulation or inhibition by the end product, feedback systems are classified in two categories. These include the negative feedback system and the positive feedback system. In biological systems, if the end product depresses the feedback mechanism by reducing its stimulus, it is called a negative feedback system. This approach results in the reversal of that change. Negative feedback system is a lot more common in body's homeostatic mechanisms than the positive feedback system. There are numerous examples in which body regulates its activities by means of negative feedback system. These include regulation of arterial blood pressure, regulation of carbon dioxide concentration and pH of blood, regulation of body temperature, and regulation of blood glucose level. The regulation of arterial blood pressure is mediated by baroreceptors in the arch of aorta that function as receptors for the feedback system. Whenever the arterial blood pressure rises too high, the baroreceptors send loads of impulses to the medulla of brain that acts as the control center. These impulses inhibit vasomotor center of medulla, reducing the activity of sympathetic nervous system. Effects include diminished pumping of heart and vasodilation of peripheral blood vessels. Both these effects decrease the arterial blood pressure, pushing it back towards normal. On the other hand, if baroreceptors detect low arterial blood pressure, the control center stimulates the activity of sympathetic nervous system, causing increased pumping of heart and vasoconstriction of blood vessels. This results in raised blood pressure, shifting it back to normal. This scenario belongs to negative feedback as it reverses the change that occurred in the system. The regulation of carbon dioxide concentration and that of blood pH are interconnected. and belong to negative feedback system. When the levels of carbon dioxide in the blood rise, as in case of some diseases, the pH of blood drops because carbon dioxide is acidic in nature. This low blood pH is sensed by the chemoreceptors. Consequently, nerve impulses are relayed to the medulla of brain, that is the respiratory center of body. Medulla increases the rate and depth of breathing. In this way, a person inhales large amounts of oxygen and at the same time exhales increased volumes of carbon dioxide. This lowers the level of carbon dioxide in the blood, which ultimately raises blood pH, moving them back to their set values. Body temperature regulation is one of the examples of negative feedback system. When body temperature rises above its normal value of 37 degrees Celsius, it is detected by the heat receptors. These receptors send impulses to the brain. Output commands are generated that act on blood vessels, causing their dilation to release heat into the environment. In addition, evaporation of sweat by the sweat glands produces a cooling effect. These responses ultimately normalize the body temperature. However, when body temperature declines, the cold receptors send message to the brain. Brain generates output commands that cause vasoconstriction in order to conserve body heat. Moreover, shivering response is produced that generates a warm effect, thus normalizing the altered body temperature. The regulation of glucose level in blood is a part of negative feedback system. Normal blood glucose level lies at 90 mg per 100 milliliter of blood. Whenever it rises above its normal level, beta cells of pancreas produce insulin hormone. Insulin reduces blood glucose to its normal level either by storing it in the liver as glycogen or by stimulating glycolysis in the cells. On the other hand, when glucose level falls below normal in blood, alpha cells of pancreas produce glucagon hormone. Glucagon stimulates glycogenolysis, that is the conversion of stored glycogen to glucose, and gluconeogenesis, that is synthesis of glucose by amino acids. It also inhibits glycolysis in cells, thus increasing the glucose levels back to normal. In biological systems, if end product stimulates the feedback mechanism by strengthening its stimulus, it is termed as positive feedback system. This approach results in the amplification of change. Positive feedback system is less common as compared to the negative feedback system. It often leads to instability as it occurs again and again and sometimes causes death of a person unless blocked by an inhibitor. Some of the examples of positive feedback system in human body include oxytocin release during childbirth, blood clotting, membrane depolarization, and hemorrhage, which is sometimes called as the vicious cycle. Positive feedback plays a crucial role in childbirth. When uterine contractions begin pushing the baby's head against the cervix, nerve impulses are transmitted from cervix to the brain. The brain causes the posterior lobe of pituitary gland to release oxytocin hormone. Oxytocin is carried by the blood to the uterus. This hormone causes more powerful uterine contractions that force the baby's head more into the cervix, and consequently, more oxytocin is produced. The process continues until the baby is delivered. Birth of baby decreases stretching of cervix, thus breaking the cycle. This phenomenon is an example of positive feedback because there is amplification of change that occurred in the system. Blood clotting is an example of valuable use of positive feedback. When a blood vessel is ruptured and a clot starts to form, clotting factors and platelets accumulate within the clot. These clotting factors and platelets release chemicals that attract and activate the nearby inactivated factors and platelets respectively. The cycle goes on until the vessel is repaired and the bleeding stops. Occasionally, if the process is not interrupted timely, it results in the formation of unwanted clots. This can lead to acute heart attacks with blood clots in a coronary artery. Positive feedback cycle is observed in membrane depolarization. In the beginning of membrane depolarization, there is slight leakage of sodium ions through sodium channels in the interior of nerve fiber. These sodium ions change the membrane potential of fiber, making it positive, causing the opening of more sodium channels and consequently entry of more sodium ions into the fiber. This generates the nerve action potential that causes flow of electric current along the nerve fiber with the initiation of new action potentials. The cycle continues until the nerve signal reaches the end of fiber. Positive feedback can sometimes prove fatal for the body. This occurs in the case of hemorrhage. When a large volume of blood bleeds out, the blood returning to the heart, called venous return, decreases. This decreases the volume of blood pumped by the heart, called cardiac output, and the blood pressure declines. There is insufficient blood flow in the coronary arteries that weakens the heart and reduces its strength of contractility. Weakened heart cannot beat forcefully to pump adequate volume of blood in the circulatory circuit, eventually causing death of the individual. Therefore, in this scenario, positive feedback cycle is called the vicious cycle. Both the feedback systems are related in a way that the useful positive feedback cycles are always a part of an overall negative process. For instance, in case of blood clotting, the positive feedback clotting process is an overall negative feedback process for the maintenance of normal blood volume. Also, the positive feedback that causes nerve signals allows the nerves to participate in thousands of negative feedback nervous control systems. Besides the simple feedback systems, body also observes some complex types of control. One of such systems is the adaptive control. Adaptive control is characterized by the expansion or contraction of body's homeostatic range in response to exposure to some non-damaging stimuli. Thus, body adapts to such stimuli by widening its set homeostatic range. Adaptive control is particularly employed by the nervous system. Brain uses the participle of feed-forward control. Feed-forward control can be elaborated as information fed in certain body organs to carry out a set of actions in response to a known stimulus. For instance, some movements of body occur so rapidly that there is not enough time for nerve signals to travel from peripheral parts of body all the way to the brain and then back to the periphery again to control the movement. So, brain uses feed-forward control to cause required muscle contractions. Afterwards, sensory signals from moving parts appraise the brain whether the movement is performed correctly or not. If not, brain corrects feed-forward signals that it sends to the muscles the next time the movement is required. This adaptive control, in a sense, is delayed negative feedback. Gain of a control system is its degree of effectiveness in maintaining constant body conditions. It is determined particularly in case of negative feedback. Gain of a system can be calculated by dividing the correction performed by the control system by the error that occurred in the system. Let's understand gain of a system with the help of an example. Assume that a large volume of blood is transfused into a person with a blood pressure of 100 mm of mercury prior to transfusion. Now, we can have two cases. In the first case, the aortic baroreceptors that control blood pressure are not functioning. Therefore, after transfusion, the blood pressure rises drastically from 100 mm of mercury to 175 mm of mercury. So, error in this case is 75 mm of mercury. However, in the second case, baroreceptors are functioning. So, after transfusion, there is a small rise in blood pressure from 100 mm of mercury to 125 mm of mercury. In this case, there is a correction of minus 50 mm of mercury, that is from 175 to 125 mm of mercury. But still there is an error of 25 mm of mercury, which means that the control system is not 100% effective in preventing change. Now, dividing correction by error, minus 50 by 25 we get the answer -2. That is the gain of control system maintaining blood pressure. By looking at the gains of two control systems, we can compare their relative effectiveness in maintaining constant conditions of their concerned variable in body. For instance, gain of control system regulating blood pressure is -2, whereas the gain of system controlling body temperature to cold stimulus is -33. This implies that the temperature control system is more effective as it can perform more correction of the error that occurs in system as compared to the blood pressure control system. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you like it. Do not forget to subscribe our channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss any update from our channel in the future.